Bosnian-Herzegovinian Film Festival has been an important event, important cultural event, not just for the Bosnian diaspora, or so to say the regional diaspora from the Balkans, but also an event that continues to attract diverse audiences in New York City and beyond. We also had a moment to really reflect on this in that bad COVID 2020 year, in the beginning of the pandemic, when we had to switch and go virtual for that year. But what that showed us is also that our audiences came from everywhere. From a variety of different places, which was both at the same time kind of a bit sad that we couldn't be all together in a theater, but on the other hand, it was kind of a revealing and eye-opening moment that this community is much larger than we tend to think it is. So it's fantastic to see you all here in the theater again for this year, and we have a fantastic program for you this year. I'm very excited to announce some of the parts of the program together with my fellow programmer Dijana Jelača, who's going to join me on the stage in a minute. But I also want to first also thank our sponsors, Trust for Mutual Understanding, New York State Council of the Arts, New York City Cultural Affairs, for supporting us throughout all these years. Our individual donors, without your support, we wouldn't be having this festival, so it's fantastic that you keep supporting us, specifically in these last rather difficult years. So thank you again. Thank you again also for buying our tickets, seeing our films, participating. It means a lot to us. Without further ado, I want to declare the festival open officially now. And I'm going to invite Dijana to join me to tell you a few notes about our program and about tonight's presentation. So please welcome Dijana Jelača, Director of Program.
Thank you so much, Amir, and good evening, everyone, on my behalf as well. Thank you for supporting us, whether you're here for the first time or whether you're here for the 19th time or anything in between. It means the world, especially as we continue to come back from those strange years of having to be away to keep safe. Theatrical film experience is like no other film experience, so we're supporting that. And we're supporting Bosnian and Herzegovinian and regional cinema. It means a lot to us that you're here and that you continue to support us. I am the programming director. My name is Dijana Jelača, as Amir mentioned. And I just wanted to tell you that we're very excited about this year's slate. For the first time ever, the majority of even film submissions that we received for the festival, but also the program, the final program that made the cut, are films directed by women. Under any circumstances that were more equal, we shouldn't be pointing this out or shouldn't be bragging about it, but since this is usually not the norm, we need to emphasize it, so we're very proud of this. I also want to point out that, as usual with our festival, the range of themes and of aesthetic and formal approaches to cinema is very varied. So I hope you can make it to more than one evening, more than one screening slot to see this incredible range of the filmmaking that is incredibly vital, that is coming from Bosnia-Herzegovina, diasporic filmmaking related to Bosnia and the region at large. Do you want to add something about that?
You already said it all, Dijana. Very little to add there, but I do want to point something out too. We do have several filmmakers present this year. One of them you will meet tonight, and we will introduce her later, Aida Begić. And I think this is something that we are particularly looking forward to, really bringing filmmakers, not just from the Balkans, but also from different Bosnian diasporas scattered across the world, and presenting their work here in New York City. So on that note, I want to also point out that please attend these, stay for these Q&As. They're usually just kind of, I think they're amazing, and it's so great to have them here. On top of that, I want to say that we also have several social events planned to kind of continue to grow this community. So stay on the lookout for some of those events, including our closing party, our awards ceremony, as obvious as reception also tonight, so that we mingle and meet each other and talk about film, but also about other themes. So.
And just to give you a sense of the range of themes covered by some of this year's films, from LGBTQ plus rights, women's rights, the ongoing stigmas around disability, the continued importance of addressing war trauma, overcoming or coming to terms or healing, reconciliation in a post-conflict environment, which sadly continues to be a very pertinent and timely topic. So on to tonight's screening. The opening film of the festival, we are delighted to have Aida Begić's latest film, A Ballad. Aida Begić has been a guest of our festival before. We have shown her films, we have celebrated her films. She has time and again proven to be one of the most vital voices in Bosnian and regional cinema, and we keep emphasizing regional because these are small film industries that are very deeply interconnected, as is the culture. So with this film, A Ballad, which is an astutely observed film, which she wrote and directed, Aida Begić once again demonstrates the importance of women filmmakers telling female-centric stories in cinema. With this newest film, she demonstrates a keen eye and a continued determination towards telling underrepresented stories in regional cinema and beyond. We are delighted that Aida is with us, and she will be joining us after the screening for a Q&A. So, as Amir said, please stick around. Thank you so much.
Mala baš nije htjela krenuti, jel? Ko da je ne znaš.
Ulica stišće, pliće se diše. Jedan brat manje. Tetovaža više.
Mary, ja stvarno želim da ti pomognem.
Neće ovo Mary moći ovako.
A šta da radi?
Ne znam, sine. Ne znam, udaj se. Da. Hajde da se ispalimo.
Ja neću da budem kod ti.
Pa nemoj.
Razumiješ, neću.
Nemoj.
Možemo sad nešto veselo?
Šta ćeš?
Just quickly to introduce our special guest on the opening night, director and writer of A Ballad, Aida Begić, who graduated in directing at the Academy of Performing Arts, Sarajevo. Her graduation film, First Death Experience, was presented at the Cine Fundación of Cannes Film Festival. Her debut feature, Snow, from 2008, which is, by the way, co-written with Elma Tataragić, another guest of this year's festival, premiered at Cannes, Semaine de la Critique, where it won the Grand Prix. Snow was nominated for a European Academy Film Award, Discovery section. Her second feature, film Children of Sarajevo, 2012, premiered in Uncertain Regard, also official selection of the Cannes Film Festival, where it won special distinction of the jury. She wrote and directed the short film Album, part of the omnibus Bridges of Sarajevo, that had its world premiere at official selection of the Cannes Film Festival. Her feature film Never Leave Me from 2017, which we also featured at our festival, and Aida was our guest, was screened and awarded at many festivals around the world. In 2022, she finished her fourth feature, which we just saw, A Ballad. Aida is also a professor at the Academy of Performing Arts, Sarajevo. Please join us in welcoming Aida Begić to the stage.
Šta da radi insan kad ostane sam?
Welcome,
My
Aida.
favorite songs.
So let us officially welcome you to the festival. Good evening.
Thank you. Thank you.
Delighted to have you again. Where to start? We're going to open it to the audience as well. So if you have any questions, there will be ushers. You can just raise your hand and the mic will come to you. But Aida, in being fairly familiar with your body of work, where to start with questions, taking apart this really layered film, one of the things that struck me that may be a departure for you is this sort of meta narrative, which is a film calling attention to itself. So it's not just a straightforward narrative film. There's the additions taking place throughout the film. And of course, there's the ending where we have characters stepping out of their roles or calling into question some of the narratives we've seen throughout the film. So where did that come from? How did you envision that? Was that immediately part of how you wanted to tell the story? Or did it come after some process that you went through? Tell us about that.
Well, basically, I started to develop this film even before my third feature. So it was really long time ago. And from the beginning, I knew that I want to take as a basis this ballad of Dijana Jelača. So starting from a poetry, I knew that it has to have some different kind of approach and narrative. But on the way in so many years after 2014, when we started developing it, and then I made another movie, and then I came back to a ballad, I started to question many things about art, about myself, and I think that I decided really to turn another page in my career and to do a movie that, if there wasn't a war, would be my first film, I guess. So I think if I didn't went through this, unfortunate teenage years, I wouldn't make those 3 films. This would be my first feature. So I rediscovered myself, and also I also started to question so many things about art itself and the cinema, and especially European cinema, which I felt came to some kind of strange, I don't know, it started to move away from American cinema in order not to be done by a recipe. But then through years, I think it became another kind of recipe. So I started to feel that I didn't like it anymore. So I didn't know what to do with it. And so, I don't know. It's very complicated, but how I felt before I came to this structure.
Speaking of recipes and going against recipes, what I really appreciated about this particular film of yours is how you present these spaces. And a lot of action happens in the interior, and a lot of films coming from Bosnia generally we could say are really Sarajevo-centric. Here we see these neighborhoods in this raw quality of cinematography too, which we'll talk about later. I definitely want to talk about that. Can you tell us where you filmed and how you picked these locations? I was very curious about that.
Well, it's a suburb of Sarajevo, which is very interesting and totally abandoned. So somehow, if you come there, it feels like war stopped 2 months ago and not like 30 years ago. But people are very nice, and it has its own atmosphere. I was searching for a place where I can create a world that is kind of closed world, so that I can create this feeling that those people are trying to reach somewhere, like in Chekhov's dramas, but they cannot. I mean, they can see somewhere there is a way out, there is a city, there is this, I think in this scene when 2 of them are talking about how they want to leave this place, but it seems so close, but at the same time very far. So Hrasnica seemed as a perfect location for that, I think. And it was during pandemic, 2020, end of the 2020 when we did this movie, which was another dimension of it. Really, it was stressful because there were lockdowns and curfews. And on one hand, it was really, I thought that I'm going to, it wasn't easy because it was my responsibility after all, even though people accepted to be part of that production, but I didn't know how I would feel if something happens to any of them. But on the other hand, it was kind of way out for us, you know. It was kind of escape because it was the only project that was done that year. So people were so happy to work. And for us, it was kind of psychotherapy, you know, because when you come to the film set, you you have to forget about context, you know. So I think that we really had fun doing this movie. And I think I had most fun in my life doing this film, and I was hoping that it will reflect also to the content of the story and the atmosphere.
And on that note, did the parts about COVID, did they appear? Did they happen actually as you started shooting, or were they part of the script?
No, they just happened because I actually never really write a script like this is final version and we're gonna film it. I write script even during shooting, so it's not really improvisation, but it's like work in progress. And so I do many rehearsals with actors, like in theater. So they know their characters, they know all the situations, but regarding lines and the mise-en-scène and everything, that's what we do on the spot. So that's how I really want the filming process to be creative process and not to be just execution of a storyboard or something like that. So in that sense, yeah, we add things as things changed on the way we were adding it in the script as well.
And speaking of that, some of those moments of humor are just so subtle and genuine and seem so spontaneous, off the cuff. I don't know if they're scripted or not, whether they are or not. Kudos to you and to the actors for performing those lines. Just they ring really true to fact. This dark humor that permeates the film is incredible. It's fascinating to see all these literary references. You mentioned The Seagull, you mentioned Hasanaginica, which I want to get back to, and Hedgehog's House, Branko Ćopić's children's poem. But Hasanaginica, for those who may not be familiar, is an epic poem about a woman sort of trapped into a situation that is determined by others, the patriarchy around her. Not to recap in great detail. So tell us more about the influences of Hasanaginica and how you decided you wanted to tackle that story through this kind of more modern mise-en-scène and milieu.
Well, this Hasanaginica actually is maybe the most famous oral poem from Bosnia and maybe from all the region. I think it's very famous, and it had many dramatization and equalization, if you say so in English, but like dramas on screen and for theater and even opera. And I really didn't like it. A poem is beautiful, but all those like adaptations for screen or for stage, I really hated it. And it was always written by men, and I didn't like the way how they portray this woman. And of course, in this ballad, she's not really doing something to save herself, which is unfortunate fact about this character. But on the other hand, there were never any poetry or any love in this interpretation of that poem. And for my opinion, this feeling of a woman who is like a victim really influenced women from the area that I come from. I mean, women in our area are really strong, and they are not people who really just go with the flow or just, surrender. But I think that they created an ideal of a woman who is just like doing nothing and being so sad and tragic and dies at the end. So I had really issue with that poem. And I was thinking who would be Hasanaginica today, and I recognized that there are so many elements that they would put this woman in the position that she cannot find the way out. But the circumstances change in the sense that her brother wouldn't be some kind of oppressive guy who is going to marry her by force like it happened in this ballad. He would be an idiot, who is destroying her life because he's an idiot, and that's it. And this is how I think these gender issues also changed in time in our places. So I will not go further with this because I think that men can feel bad about what I would say. I think this movie says enough. But yeah, and also this mother-daughter relation, because in all these adaptations, it was like mother-in-law who was like evil witch who is torturing her. And it's like a stereotype for our region as well. And I think that it's not all mother-in-laws are evil. And I hope I have sons, so I was thinking, yeah, I will be great. But mother-daughter relations are, because this patriarchal pattern is actually, I think, it's transferred by women. And also sometimes mothers are like transferring these kind of ideas to even their daughters, which is really unfortunate. And I think that's what I try to also portray in this story.
Can you speak a little bit about your work with the two principal characters, Mary and her friend Adela? Can you speak a little bit about the process of working them, preparing those roles, and working with them, rehearsing as well? Because there's some sort of an interesting dynamic between the two of them that comes across very nicely in the film. Did they know each other prior to the beginning of the?
No, they never met. And Alana, who is Adela's, who is actress who presents Adela's character, is she graduated acting, but she never had any chance to do anything. You know, so she started to work on TV as a. So this was her first role, basically, after the academy, and she really finished a long time ago. So I made an audition and I invited her, and she really was perfect. I felt that she was perfect for this character. And then when I always do, before final decisions, I put all the actors together, especially if they have so many scenes together. So once when they sit together, I saw that they are like perfect couple. I like this Thelma and Louise for poor.
I was precisely thinking of Thelma and Louise,
Exactly.
the two, the going rogue, Thelma and Louise. But and then another female-to-female ratio, which you already mentioned. There's a maternal melodrama built into this film, and Jasna Žalica and Marija Pikić, incredible sort of rapport that they have. And of course, you've worked specifically with your leading lady in this film, Marija Pikić, in your film Djeca or Children of Sarajevo from 2012. She is a performer who I feel is underappreciated in the region, not just on screen, but probably in theater more. We don't get to see it, sadly, in diaspora as much unless we're there in person. But you very memorably worked with her as a younger actress, emerging actress in 2012, and you come back some 12 years later where you filmed in 2020, finding her as a sort of a more mature actress at a different stage of her career. What is that collaboration like? Did you have her in mind immediately for the role of Mary?
Yes, I mean, Maria is kind of my muse, you know, I'm totally in love with her. And the way how we work, we don't talk so much. And I feel we just like feel each other in a way. And the way how she creates her characters are really incredible, because she's very intuitive and she's really, really talented. And I feel that she's like a wild rose, you know, that she is so beautiful, but also wild. And that's what I like about her. And every movie I would invite her to be my leading character. I really liked her. So we spent a long time together. We spent like for this movie, at least 6 months with the rehearsals, maybe even more, working with Jasna Žalica as well. But we more talk and, like hang out. And we don't really focus so much on... I try to explain her what kind of world I would like to create. And then she's really like picking up elements around. And then once when we start filming, I see that she really has the character, and she's really, really amazing. And I agree with you that she's underappreciated. Even in theater, I think that she can do much more, and probably she will in the coming years.
We're hoping and to see her more on the screen. And just quickly, it's fascinating to hear that if it weren't for the fact that you lived through a war, like many people in this room have, this story would have been your first film. There was sort of certain kind of processes or coming to terms with our own experiences that had to be sort of put out of the way maybe first in order to clear the way for this. And of course, you're working with Marija in Children of Sarajevo. It was a devastating portrayal. I highly recommend it if you haven't seen the film, of a childhood that emerges, of a young adult that emerges out of that experience. Really incredible. But I know that Amir really wants to talk about cinematography. He was
But
whispering
no-
to me throughout.
Now there was another question, because we had talked about this too, about children are really prominently featured in a lot of your films. The last film that we screened here, your last was Never Leave Me, featured prominent central characters. In that case, it was displaced Syrian refugees who were in Turkey. And I know that working with children is rather difficult and sometimes even unpredictable, but can you tell us a little bit about this process also, with working with children so often? And I often think about, obviously, the childhoods and, the adolescence and the war, specifically in relation to seeing children in your films, but I could be wrong as well. But or some lost innocence as well, loss of innocence within that space. But can you speak a little bit about working with children specifically?
Well, children are my favorite people, and I really enjoy working with them, because the difference between working with children and adults is that children give you back what you give them. If you give them love, they give you back something, love, usually. And with adults, it doesn't happen often. You can give a lot and don't get anything back. So this honest communication is something that I really enjoy a lot with children, and they're really serious professionals. I mean, once when you find a motivated and talented kid, then you can really rely on that person. The kid will never let you down, because they are honest and they have this kind of they will not let you down. And that's not what you can say with all adults, but with all children I can say, if you pick up a right kid and if you are honest with the kid, it will really be great collaboration. I also like to work with non-actors. With most of those women, for example, are not actresses, because I dedicated this movie to women, ordinary, let's say, women or great women in my country, and we made a big audition. And you cannot imagine how many women actually responded to it. So, for example, this woman that is acting neighbor woman who is saying Mirsada, who is the red hair woman. She's a nurse in a hospital in Sarajevo. And she applied for audition. And it was so funny, to see her in hospital, probably when she was maybe on her night shift. She did some dancing, monologue and things like that. These older ladies, we find them, some of them were teachers, or they are retired, all of them. They are singing in some kind of chorus, in Sarajevo as well. And their dialogues are pure improvisation. That's the only maybe improvisation real, because they are so amazing that I could just let them in shot, and then just be thrilled from what I can see that they are able to do. With non-actors, it's very risky, of course, but at the same time, what they give you is so unique and so special that you cannot get it elsewhere. So I like to combine actors and non-actors and children and life in general.
Yeah, so now going to go to that cinematography question, because in a certain sense, this film is also a bit of a departure for you in terms of cinematography, although I think your style is still recognizable throughout this film. And I thought about it a lot. Errol Zubčević was both cinematographer and co-producer with you on this film. We worked for a while now. It is raw, it is so present, it has this immediacy to it. And I was first wondering, what were you shooting on? At times it looks like phone, right? But then other cameras are also present, it seems like. And particularly that scene when she's visiting the factory. What happens, the angles there and the tension that's built, it's at the moment it's disorienting, but then it's so powerful and really packs a punch. That whole scene for me was so amazing. And I was wondering if you could tell us a little bit about this work, about the cinematography and the cameras that you worked with.
Thank you. Errol would be very happy for this question, and me too, because for this movie, we were searching for a different format, because once when we switched to digital, everything started to look similar, because the character of picture, you cannot really, you cannot achieve something that you could with 35mm camera, for example. And I told him, I don't want this brutal digital atmosphere, but I want something different, and but I want also something poetic but contemporary. And it was quite, demanding what I asked him to find. And for 2 years he was searching for formats, and we also tried mobile phone, but it wasn't really good because of some technical reasons. And finally, what he found was some small, like semi-professional, amateur. Handy cam, those for like tourists bringing around. And we bought 2 cameras, and I think both of them didn't cost us more than $1,500 or something like that. Very cheap, but it wasn't good enough. It was good as a potential. It was good with the character, with these poetic, like aquarelle moments. But that's when he found in Ukraine, he found this anamorphic lens for like $20 from some factory that tried to make anamorphic lenses, but it failed. So this strange picture that you see is because of that technically incorrect, basically, lens that we put on one camera and wide lens on the other camera. So we did it with 2 cameras, which were not 100% compatible, but we thought that it can work. And it was funny because those cameras, I couldn't have video assist. So because this camera cannot have video output, because it's very lousy camera actually. So I see the shot with in one small screen, but then once when it started to record, I lose this picture, So I actually, we did it a very old-fashioned way, because I had to trust him and also to watch things, and I liked it. And also we took advantage of the fact that those cameras were so small, so we wanted to really do angles and things that we cannot do with Alexa, with all these big cameras. We started to really, I felt it as a burden to have all this equipment on the set. So that's how maybe some of you really hated this shot, because I know that some people liked it, some people hated it when we turn around the camera. But I really had to do it because we could do it, When can you do it? Never, except when you do it with such a small camera that you can just do it like this. And of course, in the story, it's turning point, blah, blah. It has some kind of philosophy behind it. But I really like the fact that we could play with all those angles and it was so light. And another thing I have to tell you, how we did this scene when she is driving on the motorbike with her brother. We tried to do it from the car, but I didn't like it. We didn't like it because it was not so poetic, not interesting. And then Errol came to the idea to tape one camera in front, but really to tape it because we didn't have any equipment to really professionally do it, but just with the tape, and another camera on the back. And we put our actors on the quite rainy, street with 2 cameras, and just praying that they don't fell down, because in that case we would just lose both cameras. That's the only equipment we have on the set. And that shot, I saw Maria from the car, we were watching, and I told him, she's great, she's crying. And he was thinking, if this autofocus, it was like automatic focus, is it at all, sharp? Is it at all recording, because we just press recording and let them drive down the street. And it was the one and only shot we had, and it was really good. I liked it, and that we were so happy celebrating that we did it. But it was quite risky, shooting it. But yeah, that was this kind of movie that you take risks, and then what happens.
And what an incredible close-up, so poetic of that face, so evocative and reflexive. And of course, then we get to the moment, and we'll turn it to the audience shortly, but this sort of trope of the tragic bride that is permeated some late Yugoslav and post-Yugoslav cinema. I'm not going to name any names, but how you then take that and co-opt it back into a story that brings back agency to Hasan Agica to walk away with the little girl and have a conversation about the nature of art. Vagueness, we call it art. Maybe could have been a happy ending. That was just a really, really powerful taking back the narrative of perhaps what we historically may have assumed would be an inevitable tragedy if it's a woman under patriarchy, but it doesn't have to be. So that was just an incredible personal moment for me. Should we open it up for the audience? See if there's any questions. Just raise your hand.
Hello. I don't know exactly how to word my question, but I'm going to do my best. Something that I found very beautiful was the relationship between Mary and Adela. I'm not familiar with the original poem, but in the film, it was beautiful watching how she healed and regained her authenticity through the friendship of another woman. And I'd love to hear you talk about why you wrote that in and why you included that.
Well, it's not in a poem. There is no friend in a poem. But what I liked about this Adela's character is this woman who comes from, like, let's say, brutal reality, and she's really emancipated. But at the same time, she's trapped also with this male world that is actually with that boyfriend who was blah, blah, blah. But also what I liked about this relation, that nobody, even not Adela, is supporting her to become an actress. You know, it's like, okay, you can be anything and we will like help you to do anything, but come on, to be an actress, it's not a real job, you know. And that's also some kind of comment about relation to the artists and art in the place where I'm coming from. Yeah, I like this. I mean, in different circumstances and maybe in different time, they would win. But I didn't want, I mean, it was one option that probably this movie would be more formally successful if I turned this story to that direction, like they really ran away. But I didn't want, because then that's the recipe that I was talking about. I didn't want to go towards this kind of solutions, because there are certain patterns that we are now repeating, you know, when we talk about I try to really play with all those elements, like what we do today about women's stories and characters, and I try to avoid all these expected paths that I could go to. So yeah, that's why it wasn't so successful. I'm kidding. It was, and it's playing all around the world. So, yeah.
We have a question up there too.
Hi. I'm just very curious about how you chose the music for the film. I found it to be really evocative and very unusual, because it was a group of, you know, a guitarist, a bass player. It was very informal, but it was very effective in the film.
Thank you. I'm happy that you liked it. Actually, I wanted to choose like mainly Bosnian music, but also this regional, like Kaže zašto me ostavi, is like some like Croatian, and there is one Macedonian. But I wanted to, for example, this, like the main theme that in the movie is one very alternative punk rock band from Sarajevo that is completely unknown, let's say. But it's one of my favorite bands, and I remember this moment during the war. Was a concert of that band, and I remember when after these punk rock, songs, when Tena, this guitar player and the composer, started to play this love song, I thought this is the most beautiful love melody I've ever heard in my life. And I was so happy when he actually gave me this song and told me that I can use it. So I really incorporated also my personal favorite, let's say, songs, like also this one from Elvis G. Kurkovic from the end. And I try to tell also the love story through music as well. Because from Habanera, and from Carmen until these local songs, they all have the same theme, which is talking in different ways about love. So that was my leading, that was my lead.
We have time for one more.
Hi. So, this is also probably not going to be the best worded question, but you had mentioned that when you're doing the auditions for the like neighborhood women, the non-actors, that a lot of them had some sort of, you know, they had done singing in the past, or was that an influence on the audition sequences throughout the film? Because especially since there's a big theme of sort of what women have to perform.
Yes, I took some of the performances that they suggested during those auditions, for example, and also some of the dialogues that those women are saying. I also took from the improvisations from the auditions, and then I just put it in the script. What I really liked about what I find essentially connected to the story is the fact that I recognized in those women that they had so many dreams in life that they couldn't go for. They couldn't realize those dreams, and that's what those characters also have as a problem or as a situation, is that they would love. You know, sometimes I recognize that especially women in a place where I'm coming from don't even dare to have dreams until they are maybe old age. You know, it's very interesting. And for example, those auditions showed me that there are so many women who really think that they could maybe make more from their life than they did. Like Zafira's character, like Mother's character in a movie, that she says, when I became mother, I couldn't continue to sing. Why not? I mean, but there is this kind of like a glass ceiling, how do you say, stakleni plafon, where you just think that there is no obstacle, but then you just feel that you cannot go up, and that's something that. However, all those women from the Bosnia, for example, are strong and they are fighters and everything, but there is always this obstacle, sometimes in themselves, sometimes in an objective surrounding that doesn't let them really fly. And those women inspired me a lot who came to auditions.
And Zafira got to sing her song too. On that note, thank you, Aida. Lovely to have you again and be in conversation with you. And thank you all for your participation and questions.
Thank you.